So the first notable element of the Mermaids faction is that they start with one shipping level. That's super cool. They're the only faction that starts with that, and that means right away they're able to start expanding quickly. They can reach over water for digging. They can, get to level 2, 3 ship more quickly than other factions. So that's like really fun aspect of Mermaids. The other thing you'll see here is that's unique to Mermaids is this 4th and 5th shipping level is unique to them. So there's a little bit more points available in how they increase their shipping, and they can get to maximum levels of shipping higher than any other faction. So, and it's not uncommon for them to reach those heights. The next thing that's important for Mermaids that you'll see here is their ability to town. So they can town across water without needing a bridge, right? So instead of needing to do a bridge that costs 3 power, instead you can use those 3 power for resources and some other power action. Or you can also town in weird shapes that wouldn't be possible without a bridge. And so Mermaids have this little extra advantage of being able to town a little more flexibly. The next thing that you should note about Mermaids is they're one of the few factions that starts with 9 power in Bowl 2. That means that they're more likely to have access to the double dig power action round 1 than most of the other factions. And if they start on a power scroll, which gives you 3 power income for round 1, you're already moving to the point where you have 12 power in Bowl 2, so you can even, in that case, first move do it. The stronghold is not very important for Mermaids. Yeah, it increases your shipping level once. You basically should never open stronghold as Mermaids. If you're going to build it, you're building it at the end of the game. Maybe it's big building round, you're on big building scroll, or maybe you are trying to score by getting your ship level up, but that's really a round 5, 6 consideration, and there'll be lots of games where you don't build your stronghold at all. By far the most common starting placements for Mermaids are E4 and D5. E4 is nice because it gives you access to the southwest. It also lets you get up to C1 pretty quickly. D5 is nice because you sort of control the middle of the board, and it potentially lets you get up into the northeast as well. Every once in a while, particularly if yellow is not in the game, so if D3 is going to be empty, every once in a while Mermaids will go D5 and H4 and try to expand from there and probably head west in rounds 3, 4. Another thing that you'll see every once in a while is if all the upgrading is going to be on the left side of the board, sometimes you'll see E4 and D2 as a pairing. Those are pretty uncommon. Definitely E4, D5. These are by far the most common starting placements for Mermaids, and those should be your default. The most common good opening for Mermaids is to open Temple and 2 or 3 new dwellings round 1. One nice thing about Mermaids is from their standard starting placements, with 1 dig, they can get 2 new dwellings down into the southwest because they have 1 ship. So that means if they're starting on dig scroll, or if they're taking the single dig power action, that's enough for them to use their 6 workers to go trading post Temple, grab a favor, and 2 new dwellings. If they start on worker power, they can, and then double dig, they can actually get 3 new dwellings down round 1 in addition to the temple. So this is probably the most common, one of those is the most common Mermaids openings. Really nice to be able to open temple 3 new dwellings if possible. Now the question of what favor do you take with that temple? Most of the time, and for fun games, probably default to taking fire 1, 3 coins every round. If you can see that you're going to get a coins power action in round 1 or 2, then maybe you can be greedy and actually take Earth 1, which scores 2 points for every dwelling you put down. Take that in round 1 and trust that you're going to have coins from other sources to keep your economy going in balance, because you're going to be producing a lot of workers with this opening, which is part of what makes Fire 1 so attractive. The other really strong opening for Mermaids that's less often available, but when it is available you should consider it, is called a Dwelling Rush. So from your standing starting placements, when mermaids are on temporary shipping, so they have range of 2 for that round, and they double dig into the northwest C1, they can get 5 or 6 new dwellings down round 1, in addition to their 2 starting ones, which is really, really good. So if it's dwelling scoring round 1 and you have access to temporary shipping, and you'll be the one, you'll have access to double dig, that's a really appealing option. Very rarely, I almost never see people open 2 temple with mermaids, but I actually think it could be really, you should consider it situationally, but usually not. Usually you're looking for this opening, and every once in a while you'll be able to open with a dwelling rush. Typically, early game plan, for example, round 2 and 3 for mermaids, from your standard starting placements, is figuring out how to get to C1. C1 will give you opportunity to start getting this A4 D2 going, and this will be one of your town locations in some form. Not necessarily all these hexes, but it could, any 4 of these hexes can become a town. The other spot that you're looking to develop is something along this line. So this will be a town spot for you that may involve a bridge between F2 and H2, with this hex being the water hex that you're skipping with your town. Often these 2 hexes here will be a sanctuary town, either with A8 or B3, or you can use D5 to get to a town up into the north. So we just pointed to 1, 2, 3, 4 possible town locations. Just to throw another one out, if you do a sanctuary town E5, E4, F2, and you can get a neighbor in the southwest, you can actually have a town location here. So it's not to say you're going to have 4 towns necessarily, but you should be aiming for 3 towns as mermaids. One of their advantages is that they can town a little bit more easily than other factions. The other key thing that you're going to be thinking about as mermaids is how to score with the ship scoring scroll later in the game. So you're going to be looking for ways to lock up 3 of these town locations, and you're going to be looking for ways to increase your shipping and get on that ship scoring scroll. Mermaids are medium. So a couple things that will affect how strong mermaids are in the game. So for one is that you want to see one of the yellow factions in the game. And the key is that we want to be developing around that yellow hex in the west, right? We're starting here and we want to try to be getting into the northwest. All that is kind of only valuable if we have a neighbor somewhere here going through the middle. And so yellow usually will start there with blue. So that really, really helps us. So we want to see yellow in the game. Additionally, we benefit from the ship scoring scroll a lot more than all the other factions. So we'd like to see the ship scoring scroll in the game as a way for us to score. And that again, that benefits us more because we can get up to the 4th and 5th shipping levels. That's a lot of points to be getting from just that one scroll. Another important thing to think about is, will either of the black factions, if black's in the game, are they going to start on this one? This is C1. So if they start on that hex, it's a bummer for mermaids because it takes away this sort of northwestern area. And so, sometimes Darklings like to start on that and see if they can bully mermaids out of the northwest. So we don't want black to be on C1. And, sometimes against alchemists will instead start on the isthmus and develop, eastward. But every once in a while they might be on C1 or Darklings on C1, and that's a bit of a bummer. So definitely look out for that. The other thing is the tension with, if green's in the game, mermaids or Orin, if they're on this green hex here. So this is a typical starting placement for green against mermaids. And so the question is green going to beat mermaids to that green hex right there. So this becomes a kind of a focal hex when with blue-green. So mermaids in green actually divide up the board pretty nicely. Like mermaids will take, this territory to the west and southwest, and green will sort of take the east and southeast. The one question is whether green's going to get frisky and snag that hex. So an example would be if your seat 4 is mermaids, you take the dig scroll, but then temporary shipping scroll, if you see that, and green can start on that scroll, and then they're going to act before you, then they might just build on this before you even get a turn. And so that's the kind of situation you want to watch out for. And sometimes if that's the case, you might actually just want to start on temporary shipping to prevent them from doing that. Not that it's a death knell if they get that. You might strand that structure, or you might have to do some crazy 5-ship connection from that later. But securing it makes your connection way easier to the west. It also sets up the possibility of doing sanctuary towns. So that's another thing that I would just sort of keep an eye on, is like, okay, I might have to make sure I take a worse scroll just to make sure I prevent green from grabbing the hex before me. One more thing to think about is it dwelling scoring round 1? And if it is, can I do like a hardcore dwelling rush, right? Temp shipping, where I'm like, temp shipping means we're at 2 ship for the round, and that 3 power means we can access to double dig in most cases. So then, we're with our 2 ship, we're digging that C1 hex, and maybe we're either digging that green we talked about, or maybe even this green, in which case with 2 ship we can reach out there. We're reaching that blue, right? So if we can build 5 or 6 new dwellings in a dwelling scoring round 1, that's bonkers. So that's definitely something else that to look out for that really makes mermaids even stronger. If you're ready to get a little spicy with mermaids, here's some ideas. You can go for 4 towns with Fire 2, a late Fire 2 favor. They have a lot of town spots like we talked about, and they can town a little bit more easily than other factions. Another idea is to go culty if there aren't other cult factions in the game like cultists. They start with 2 steps on water, which means with a water 2 favor tile, using that cult step on water and putting a priest to the 3 spot, they can get the 8 spot of water cult round 1, which would be wonderful to get, for example, 2 digs off the cult if it's a water dig reward, or 2 priests. Another idea is to plan to play pretty tall and finish the game with 10 or fewer structures, just 2 towns, and plan to focus on playing the track really hard, maybe building trading posts mid-game and even your stronghold, and then just trying to hit the ship scoring hard on 3, 4, and 5 shipping level multiple times throughout the game.